Hey everybody. For the past several weeks I've been busy either fixing people's computers or doing schoolwork and have not had much time to mess with parts computers, though I have still been buying them. So I have a nice little collection here. This will be my first video of going through 4 parts computers in one video. Well, to be honest with you, it's the first time I think I've ever had 4 parts computers I haven't even examined yet. So we have an E-Machines computer, 2 gateways, and an HP. The E-Machine is based on a single-core Athlon 64, socket 754. The gateways are socket 939 dual-core AMDs. Well, actually, all 3 of these, the rest of them are socket 939 dual cores. So let's go ahead and get started. First, we're going to go ahead and look at the E-Machines computer. Okay, here's a look at the E-Machine. This was originally an E-Machines T6410. Has a Athlon 64 3200 plus CPU, 2.2 gig. It's probably a Venice core. It has DVD burner. Has onboard ATI Radeon Express 200 graphics, and originally had a 160 gig hard drive. And I paid $20 for this one at the Google Computer Works store. So anyways, let's go and pop the cover off and look inside. Which, by the way, all these computers come from Google Computer Works. Okay, here's a look inside this one. Here's the motherboard. We do have a few bad caps. Some Kimicon KZGs. I see these fail all the time. Got one here, one here, one here, one down here. So at least 4 capacitors I'll be replacing this board. However, the board does work. I did actually test this one in the store before I bought it. So let's go ahead and throw some RAM in and fire it up, and I'll show you what it does. It works, but it's not in a very good state of condition right now. Probably because of the bad capacitors. So let's go ahead and plug it up. Okay, so let's go and look at the back of this thing before I fire it up. Anyways, it has a 300 watt Hypro power supply. I find this a bit unusual for an E-Machine because normally E-Machines either have Bestech power supplies or sometimes Delta power supplies. And for this one to have a Hypro, it's a bit unusual. So anyways, we have 2 PS2 ports. Have a video out. We have a printer port, FireWire, USB 2.0 ports, Ethernet, sound, all that kind of stuff, and of course the modem down at the bottom. And so yeah, let's go and start up and show you exactly what I mean by a bad state of condition. Now, as you saw, the motherboard had some bad caps on it, and sometimes Hypro power supplies tend to have bad caps too because they use TPO. Let's go ahead and fire it up. As you can see, not sure you can see in the camera or not, but the the graphics are not in a very good state of condition. As you can see, there's a lot of squiggly lines all over the screen. And I'm thinking bad caps on the motherboard probably have to do with this. So yeah, this motherboard's going to be recapped. So anyways, I'm going to move on to the next machine. And if this Hypro power supply has some bad caps, and I'll make a video about that. I might even make a video about how to replace the capacitors. I'm not sure. It just depends on how much time I have available. So anyways, we're going to cut this one off and move on. Now I'm going to look at the HP system. This was an HP Media Center PC M7470N, and this one has a lot of stuff in it, considering I only paid $20 for it. It still has its DVD-ROM drive and its DVD burner, although they're like backwards. The burner is down in the bottom slot where it says DVD-ROM, and the DVD-ROM drive is up in the top slot where it says LightScribe DVD Super Multi-Drive. This one also has a card reader, but I'm pretty well sure this card reader doesn't support SD high capacity cards. That's a real bummer when it comes to these old computers, is I'd like to reuse the card readers, but you can't use SD high capacity cards with them. Anyways, being a Media Center computer has a lot of connections up front. Got some USB, FireWire, headphone, microphone, composite video, RCA, audio jacks, S-video, and this weird HP media drive bay thing. It's like these kinds of things here just don't seem to last. HP will come out with something and people don't like it and they just pretty much have to quit it. Anyways, this one has a AMD Athlon 64X2 processor, socket 939, HDI Radeon Express 200 graphics, and it has a Vista capable badge on it. So let's go ahead and look at the side. Of course, has a large vent and everything. Let's go ahead and look at the back. The power supply is missing from this computer. I guess the power supply probably has some bad capacitors and they just threw it out. I kind of wish they'd just keep it in because I like to fix that kind of stuff. Anyways, the motherboard has a lot of connections, seeing it's a Media Center computer. It has digital audio out. It has your regular audio, your Ethernet, 4 USB 2 ports, FireWire, VGA out, printer port, PS2, and down here is a modem, and we got a TV tuner in this computer. This was a TV ready PC, and of course this is just an analog tuner. It's actually an FM radio tuner too. That's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and take the side panel off and have a look inside. And I'm going to show you guys something that I think is extremely unusual. And it's on the motherboard. Let's go ahead and look inside this thing. And here is what I find very unusual. Look at those capacitors. For one thing, they're Panasonics or Matsushita, I think that's how you pronounce the actual name of them, but it's a Panasonic brand. Panasonic capacitors, and they're on the CPU VRM, and they're bulging. Something very, very, very unusual. Normally you don't find Panasonic capacitors with bulge tops on them. Makes me wonder if something else has happened to this computer. And of course, this being a socket 939, it takes DDR memory. It can do dual channel up to 4 gigs. Motherboard has a PCI Express x16 slot. The eMachine had this kind of setup too. Now notice the TV tuner is not bolted in, so I'm going to push it back in real good before I actually test this machine. I'm going to be parting out this machine. Very likely I'll be parting out this machine, even if the motherboard works. And our optical drives are both IDEs. And there's this very weird media drive bay thing. It's just something that gets in the way when you're trying to fix these HPs. I had to replace a motherboard in an HP similar to this, and getting this thing out was not very easy. It just gets in your way. So I'm going to throw in some RAM and a power supply and see if this thing's going to start. Alright, I got some memory installed and the power supply installed and everything plugged up. Let's see if it's going to work. We definitely got some problems here. Notice this light flashing. Yes, we definitely got some problems. It's probably those bad capacitors on the motherboard. So all I have to do is I'll have to recap it and then see if I can get it to work. So I'm wondering if, see, it's unusual for Panasonic capacitors to fail like this. I'm wondering if something else has caused this motherboard to act up somehow. Because that is very unusual to see Panasonic capacitors bulge like that. Okay, now I'm going to look at one of the gateways. And this particular gateway is a, look for the model, it's a GT5058 personal computer. It's a Media Center computer, has, what I should say, it had Windows XP Media Center Edition 2005 installed. And it was deemed as Vista capable. Well, more, or actually, better yet, it would be considered Vista ready. Let's look at the specs. At least what it says anyway. The specs on this thing, it has a AMD Athlon 64X2 processor 3800 plus. It's a socket 939. Has NVIDIA GeForce 6100 LED graphics. Let's see. Has a DB burner and a DB ROM drive. It originally had a 250 gig hard drive, 2 gigs of DDR memory, 9-in-1 card reader. Tell you about the modem, network, all that kind of stuff. Blah blah blah. Anyways, let's go and have a look inside this one. This is a BTX form factor system. Oh yeah, I paid $12.99 for this one. Now this one does have a few things wrong with it. At least I can visually tell. And here's a better look inside this gateway. And so back in these days, these were probably one of the first machines. Well, I'm not sure if I'd say the first, but this is a computer that was manufactured during the time that E-machines and Gateway were the same thing. And basically they still are just owned by Acer. But this motherboard does have some bad capacitors, and those are Evercons. It's the first time I've seen this brand on a motherboard. They're actually tied in with Seicon and GSC. My old Celio P4X100 Dragon Ultra motherboard has Seicon capacitors that are bulging on it. And what's amazing is that most of these capacitors started bulging after the motherboard was fried. So this board sit on my wall, and the only 2 capacitors that were bulging when the motherboard was still in service was those 2 on the right of those 5. The rest of them bulged when this motherboard was sitting on my wall. Now, if the bad capacitors on the motherboard, that's probably a sign saying that the motherboard is probably bad. Though it might just be like the E-machine. It might still post. Our power supply is a Delta 300 watt unit, I believe it's 300 watts. Let me see. Trying to find out. You can't just simply see the outputs on these things. But yeah, it's a 3.3 volt, 5 volt, 12 volt, 280 watts. So pretty much 280 watt. Probably listed as a 300 watt power supply. It's a Delta model, DPS 300 PB. So yeah, 300 watt power supply. But yeah, I've actually seen these in E-machines before. And that's pretty much the case with E-machines and gateways. Is you'll either find Bestech or Delta in them. Sometimes, like in that last E-machine, you'll actually find a Hypro once in a while. Yeah, let's go and stick some RAM in this thing and plug everything out and see if it's going to start. Alright, let's see if it's going to start. Absolutely nothing. So let me go ahead and double check. Make sure the front panel connections are hooked up. Somebody has unplugged the front panel connections. Hang on just a moment. Okay, let's try again. It's actually giving a beep code error for no RAM installed. Even though there is memory installed. So this motherboard is pretty much foobar. I'll just power out this computer. So actually what I'm going to do is I'll power out this computer at the end of the video. Okay, and here's the final system out of all four of those machines. It's the other gateway system. And it's really close similar to the one I just looked at. However, there are some minor differences here. This is a Gateway GT5028, and this one has the same kind of CPU, same size hard drive, same kind of graphics, but only 1 gig of RAM. That's pretty much the only difference I even see between the two computers. Let's go ahead and look inside this one. This one has a graphics card installed. This is actually an aftermarket graphics card. This wasn't factory installed. And I want to show you something real bad about that graphics card too. It's something I've never seen before. On Cube Computer Channel, I made videos about fans failing. Like my most recent fan fail video, the fan on my graphics card in the Mid-Tower Deluxe failed. And I had to replace that with an old Delta CPU fan. Just give me a moment to get this thing out. So as I was saying, I had to replace the fan on the graphics card in the Mid-Tower Deluxe with a Delta CPU fan with some modifications. But anyways, the fan on this graphics card is in much worse condition. Not only is it locked up, but it's actually rusted. I kid you not. The plastic is actually cracked. I'm gonna just pull this off of here so I can just see. This is terrible. Absolutely terrible. Look at this fan. Just have a look at that. I say that's pretty rough. This thing has been subjected to moisture. Just look at that. Words can't even describe it. It gets better. Wait till we look at the motor, which you may have already seen a glimpse of it. This is a VisionTek graphics card. There's the motor. I'd say that's pretty rough. So there's really no telling if this graphics card is any good, considering that the cooling system has failed. It appears to have failed long ago. Anyways, we're going to move on with the computer. I'm going to be testing this computer using the onboard graphics, which is the NVIDIA GeForce 6100 graphics, just like the other machine. And here's a look at what's on the back of this computer, because I don't think I ever covered the ports and connections on the back of the last one. Anyways, it's your typical affair. You have your PS2 ports, printer port, VGA out, your USBs, FireWire, Ethernet sound, and of course your modem, that kind of stuff. This gateway has the Bestech power supply, the HTX 312E. Which, don't get this power supply mixed up with the 25012E. The Bestech HTX 312E shares the same high quality 5V standby design as the 12Z HPN compact models. This power supply will never fail you, or at least it won't fry your motherboard, for that matter. Now let's go ahead and hook everything up, install some RAM, see if it's going to work. Okay, got everything hooked up. Let's see if it's going to work or not. This one does work. We're going to access the BIOS. And, yeah, this one works very well. Truth is, I actually tested it in the computer work store, but I don't want to tell you till now. It's funny, the PC health status on this thing tells you a lot of information for an OEM system. It tells you almost all your voltages, if not all your voltages, your temperatures, fan speeds, that kind of stuff. And actually gives you the option to turn off the smart fan. This is something I'd like to see on more OEM system BIOS menus. The system time is off. The CMOS battery might be getting a little bit low or something. I'm not sure. It's detecting everything. This is the first system that I actually managed to get into the BIOS and see everything. Remember, the E-machine was so bad off that you couldn't really see what was on the screen. So anyways, this one here works perfectly fine. So I'm going to be refurbishing this one. I'm going to give it some more memory. I'm going to make a Vista Premium system out of it. I say it's not too bad for $20. Okay, now I'm going to part out this HP. First thing we're going to do is get rid of this dumb media drive bay thing. But first thing, actually, I'm going to take off this front bezel. And of course, while I'm going to be trashing the case, I'm not going to be very gentle with it sometimes if something doesn't want to come off. Okay, let's see if I can get this thing out. So, like I said earlier in the video, these media drive bay things just get right in your way. I think they're a big waste of space in the computer. Because they weren't really, from what I understand, they're not really a standardized item. Like you'd only find them in HPs and maybe compacts. That's the first part. These things are very, very weird. I'm trying to figure out how I took the last one out. So it comes out the front of the computer. Here we go. Alright, media drive bay is out of the way. Let's go ahead and get out the optical drives. We got our DVD-ROM drive and our DVD burner. Light scribe DVD burner, I should say. Basic old DVD-ROM drive. And our DVD burner. It's going to take out stuff like fans, that kind of stuff. We're going to unbolt the rear case fan. Not like I don't have enough fans anyway, but let's go ahead and save it. Like I tell my close buddies, if you need fans, come to me because I have got too many fans as it is. I got a box under my table that's overflowing with them. Alrighty. Here's a rear exhaust fan. It's a Delta. Nothing wrong with this fan. Now let's take the CPU core loose. It's a rather nice CPU core, at least for an OEM machine. Nothing really special, but it's a it's pretty decent for what it is. Here's a closer look at the design of it. Now let's see what kind of CPU we have. We know it's a dual core. Socket 939. It's probably a 3800 plus. Something I see really common in HPs of this age. Actually, we got a 4200 plus. I may have to save this one for the Black Max. My parents' computer has a 3800 plus in it, and I got that CPU overclocked to 2.5 gig. I may have to toss this one in and see how good it goes. So we got a 4200 plus socket 939 X2. I may have to consider putting this one in my parents' machine and see how far I can overclock it. Actually, we have a problem here. This CPU has been removed by somebody else, and to look real closely, this CPU is ruined. That may actually be why the motherboard was acting up. The CPU has a pin that is bent down and crushed against another pin. I'm going to zoom in so you can see this. I'll get you some more light too so I can see. This CPU is ruined. So unfortunately I cannot use it in the Black Max. I tell you, something I hate to see. But somebody can't just simply properly install a CPU. They gotta break something on it. This would be probably the second or third time I've seen this in a parts machine. But you notice that pin there is like crushed against the one next door to it. I may have to see if I can fix this, but I doubt it, seeing that pin is really just, it is pushed over so badly it would probably break if I went to try to fix it. Well, to my amazement, I actually did manage to rescue this CPU. There's still a very, very slight bend in the pin, but it should install. There's a pin that was pushed over to the side, but now I managed to push it back up like it's supposed to go. So it turns out that pin pushing against the other pin was shorting out the CPU, and of course with the pin not making contact with the motherboard and one getting shorted out against another pin, that kind of explains why the motherboard wasn't too happy about that. So let's see if it drops down to the socket. And that's this. This is a prime example. Prime example. These sockets are called ZIF sockets, zero insertion force. That means you should not have to apply pressure to install the CPU. When the socket is unlocked, it should just drop right in. If it does not, do not force. I can't stress it enough. People will force their CPUs into the socket and then ruin them. They say, oh, why is my CPU not working? Why is my motherboard not working? Well, that kind of answers the question. Alright, so I'm going to pull out the rest of the hardware. Of course, we got a TV tuner card in here. Let's go have a closer look at that card. It is a Win TV. It's a Hauppauge Win TV. It's got a copyright date of 2005. And of course, there's the model number. Now, of course, a tuner card like this is like, wow, that's not very impressive. But back in 2005, having a tuner card with the FM tuner built in and everything for the Windows XP Media Center, that was really cool. And so with this card, you can record your standard cable television shows for free. You don't have to pay for a DVR because your computer's a DVR. Anyways, I'll be reusing this card in another build, probably no refurbished computer. Now it's going to continue on. Of course, we also got a modem. Use typical telephone modem. And I'm just going to pull out the motherboard. Let's unhook all the connections. I believe this board's okay. It's just the CPU being incorrectly installed may have caused the issue. I'm hoping the board's not permanently damaged from that. But if it does work, I'll have to recap it because it's got those bulging Panasonics behind the CPU socket, and there's another bulging capacitor somewhere else I saw on this board. It's right below the first memory slot. So anyways, I will test this board at the end of the video to see if it's going to work or not. Because even though you're watching me pour out this computer at the end of the video, I'm actually doing this before I'm shooting the videos of the other computers. Here's the motherboard. And of course, I also go ahead and save the I/O shield plate. There's the I/O shield plate for the board. And let's see if there's anything else worth parting out. I always like to save these the power LED, hard drive LED, and the power switch, because there's a standard nowadays on motherboards. On most motherboards out there, the arrangement for the hard drive LED, power LED, etc. is exactly the same. And this kind of stuff's worth saving now. I'm also going to go ahead and save all these connections in front of the computer. As I can easily get the thing out. Let's see. Alrighty. So that concludes the part out of the HP computer. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is, on this computer, when I part it out, is take out the power supply. Here's a power supply. It's a clamshell design, actually. And these are actually decent quality units. Now I'll go ahead and take out the optical drives. The good thing is I have a bunch of E-machine towers kicking around that could use drives, so this is always good to have. It's always good to have more extra E-machine style drives. Here's the DVD burner. And here's the DVD-ROM drive. Now let's go ahead and get access to the CPU. And it's funny, the fan on these gateways just slips right out. And then unbolts from this. I'll go ahead and unbolt it and see what kind of fan we have. If I'm not mistaken, the last gateway I parted out actually had a ball bearing 120mm fan in it. It's a Delta. I don't see anything about ball bearing on there, but it's a Delta, so usually Delta fans are very good quality. Got a good bit of dust on it, but let's see, pulls 0.35 amps, pretty typical for a 120mm fan. Not too overly fast, but does move a lot of air. Now let's go ahead and see that CPU. And of course, having DDR memory, I know it's a socket 939. But actually, I think somebody took the CPU out of this motherboard, because this is I think that's exactly what happened. This is way entirely too loose. Well, we have a CPU, but somebody have been playing with this thing. So the only thing holding the CPU in place, well, the CPU heatsink in place, was the thermal compound on the CPU. Which, if the CPU would have overheated from not being cooled, it would have shut the computer off. Which I seriously doubt, since it was beeping like that, it was really even giving much any power to the CPU. But this is a Athlon 64X2, socket 939, 3800 plus. This is a 2.0 gig Manchester core CPU. If you have a nice motherboard, you can take this CPU easily to 2.5, 2.6 gig. This CPU overclocks wonderfully. Anyways, I'll go and put that to the side. Other than the CPU, the power supply, and the DVD the DVD drives, I don't have much to say about this thing. It doesn't have much to say for itself, but for $12.99, I think I got a really good deal on the parts out of it. And of course, typical affair, pink stuff on the hot running 6100 LE chip. That may be the reason why this thing wasn't posting. That's usually the most common reason to why these things don't post. There's actually one thing I always like to say off of motherboards that are bad. The CMOS battery. All I have to do is measure it with my multimeter and see if it's good or not. The good thing about having an extra store of CMOS battery is if you get a system in that has a dead CMOS battery, it doesn't hurt to have an extra reserve of these things. And even after many years, they'll still hold 3 volts of a charge. It just really depends. During the time that I actually need a CMOS battery, I just take my digital multimeter and test the voltage and see if it's right around 3 volts. If it's not there, I'll chunk it. But if it is there, I'll reuse it in another motherboard. And in some cases, I would actually, if the motherboard had a lot of good capacitors on it, I would actually save the board. For a recap for capacitor harvesting. This board does qualify because it does have some Rubicon capacitors on it, and some Chemicons, and a few others. And of course, those Evercons, we can forget about using those. I could just, well, of course, I have enough back capacitors sitting around chunking the wood stuff, so that's no big deal. So I'll even take the motherboard out. First, take out this telephone modem. There's a modem. And there's actually still use for those nowadays. Faxing. People still fax. Anyways, let's get this motherboard out. So anyways, there's the motherboard. Got one more heatsink. Yeah, I even saved the heat sinks off of these boards, especially when they're pretty large. I'm not going to save this one though because there's a reason behind it. It is stuck to the board. It's stuck to the Southbridge chip with a lot of this pink stuff. You can see it. It's right there. It's like somebody opened up a pack of Double Bubble, stuck it on the Southbridge chip, and then stuck on the heatsink. I can't stand this stuff. I'm serious. I cannot stand this stuff they call thermal interface material. It looks like bubble gum because it never seems to do the job. I see it dry up, and this gets worse from there. So I'm going to toss this motherboard into my death row box. That way I can harvest the capacitors off of it. The good ones anyway. So let's see. They got this, okay, I think I can access the USB ports. For those who commonly watch my videos, they know I really like to recycle stuff when it comes to computers. It helps to keep a lot of stuff out of trash and reuse things. Though some people call me a hoarder because of that. Okay, I got that USB FireWire audio panel out, and also got the card reader removed. And let's see if I can get these things here out. It's not like I don't have enough of these. I ain't gonna worry about it. But so anyways, now this machine is parted out. And yes, I did manage to save those LEDs and power button from this last gateway. To finalize this video, I'm going to be testing this HP motherboard one more time. Now that I figured out that the CPU may have been the root cause of the previous failure to start, I have fixed that CPU and I've reinstalled it. And I got this nice and dusty old Asus fan and everything. Let's see what we can get out of this thing. Apparently the motherboard is just foobar. I think that CPU being shorted out ruined the board. As you can see, we got the flashing LED of death. Okay, I installed a different CPU. Let's try this one more time. We got life this time. So it was actually the CPU. However, it's still not getting a post, so I think both the CPU and the board were bad. I could probably try the CPU in a different board and see if I can get better results, but I think that the way the CPU is improperly installed ruined it. So unfortunately with the HP, the motherboard and CPU were both bad. But I did get some things out of it, like the DVD-ROM and DVD burn drives and that kind of stuff. So anyways, two computers didn't work, so we parted them out, and the other two did. One's going to still need repairs, and the other one just needs to be refurbished. So anyways, that's not too bad for 4 parts computers, all from the Goodwill Computer Works store. Anyways, this concludes this long video, so any questions or comments, feel free to ask, and thanks for watching.